his name, Habakkuk's name means either embracer or wrestler.
I like wrestler.
What is it?
Wrestler,
I like
Wrestler
wrestler.
or wrestler?
a wrestler.
I just found embrace, so I like the wrestler.
Yeah, he said he's either a wrestler or he's an embracer, which is kind of the same thing when you really think.
Yeah,
And it is believed that the letter was written sometime between 640 and 615, but most scholars believe that it was written about 606 BC. The reason that they think that is because there was a big battle, and I think when I taught Daniel, I don't know, Marta, if you remember that, but when I taught Daniel, the Battle of Carchemish, okay, that was the battle where Nebuchadnezzar actually came into power, or him and his father came into power and was beating Assyria and all these other, Sennacherib and that whole crew. So that was, they believe that this is around that time. So the Battle of Carchemish, and others think that the book could have been written around 655 BC. Remember, it goes in reverse order, so it'd be earlier during the reign of Manasseh, who was, the king of Judah. That seems pretty early to me, but whatever. But the first two chapters of the three, chapter 1 is basically Habakkuk is questioning God. Why? Why are these things happening? That would be chapter 1. What the heck is going on here? And then the other one is God's answer, which is, what is God's answer to it?
I loved it. You wouldn't believe it if I told you.
So chapter 1 is,
that was a surprise for me.
Yeah.
chapter 1 is why. Chapter 2 is wait. Wait, and let me show you. I would be like, well, how long?
That's what it does. How long?
How long? How long are you gonna make me wait? And so, here is what it begins. Here, what questions in chapter 1 does Habakkuk ask? In chapter 1, he asks a couple of questions. The first question is,
How long will I call? And
You will not hear.
you will not hear.
and that is a really, really good question. What's the next one?
Why do you make me see iniquity and wickedness?
Okay,
You don't even want to look at it.
okay, and then he says, I cry out violence and you won't save me. Right? We have a couple at our church yesterday when I was there. The wife, sweetest person ever on the planet, and they have grown children. She had a stroke, and so she has diminished capacity. You might think she was slow, okay, but she's very sweet, and she understands things, but she's a little bit diminished. Their daughter was at an intersection in North Austin. I can't remember exactly where it was. Anyway, some guy was kind of driving and she had to slam on the brakes and stop because I guess she thought he was gonna hit her or something like that. Anyway, long story short, the guy got out of his car and kissed her. She had her window open and started beating her.
Oh my
And
God. Because she had to stop.
she had to stop, I guess, made him mad. I don't know what the deal was.
Was he in front of her?
I have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the location of the home, she didn't hit it, it wasn't a hit, but I just think, I mean,
Yeah.
we're seeing this, I mean, to know somebody personally that this has gone through this, it's all those people out there on the news. But you start seeing people personally and say, wow.
People snap at the smallest.
Snap, I have been flipped off more since COVID than I ever have in my entire life.
And
And
you-
I'm just turning the corner and I'm just using my signal and I'm not, and they whip around you, they're like, ah, I'm like, I don't know what your problem is, dude, but I'm just turning the corner.
Yeah.
I haven't looked on. What I've noticed is more in the news, you hear more incidences of road rage now.
Right,
You didn't used to hear, I mean, you knew it
People get
happened, yeah,
mad.
but yeah,
man.
chase them down for miles.
Yeah, that's right. They get mad. So he asked me, why do you make me see, and I'm gonna write the other half of that question. And cause me to look. So you make me see, this is the same question, but you cause me to look at what? Wickedness.
Wickedness.
At things that are wicked. Now, I started to kind of think about what exactly is he trying to say? Now, this word, I was very surprised at the definition of it. So the circumstances, I'm just gonna write them down, are destruction and violence, right?
Mhm.
Now, I looked up this word for destruction and violence. It is defined as Hamas.
Oh, my gosh.
Really?
Right.
Yes,
Mhm.
Hamas.
Hamas.
That is the definition, and it means cruelty, damage, and injustice.
There you go.
I was just like, this means cruelty, damage, injustice.
So Hamas is what language?
Well, this is the Hebrew term for it, which is, I looked it up in the Hebrew and it was Hamas. Now, their language is different. They do speak Hebrew, but they speak, I guess, Palestinian, I guess, or rather Arabic language.
Aramaic.
But they're very, very similar. Those two languages are really, really close. So I just was like, wow. And iniquity that he's talking about here means specifically idolatry. So he's talking about destruction and violence, iniquity, which means idolatry. And then the next thing that he's talking about is save. When he says you won't save, that word means defend or deliver. That's the thing that I thought was important about this, because you're looking at cruelty, damage, and injustice, idolatry, and he's not saying remove me, he's saying defend and deliver. So, I mean, I think that there's a reason why it's this particular use of this word. And then he talks about strife and contention. We'll just use it. And that word is Madon. And that word means a dispute that cannot be stopped once it starts.
Hmm.
It is disputes that cannot be satisfied. Now, what does it tell you about the conditions? Do you see any similarity to today?
You might have been to knee.
We have disputes that they flat out
Chaos.
cannot be satisfied. That just struck me. And when we talk about being saved, we want to be saved from the circumstances, but is that what God really wants us to do?
He wants us to glorify him in the circumstance.
Exactly. So what is Habakkuk asking for?
Rescue.
Completely take me out of this. Right? This is not acceptable to me. I don't want to live in this.
I don't wanna look at it.
I don't want to see it. And that word look, I do look all that stuff too.
And I feel that way today about today's, I'm just tired of looking at the evil.
Right, right. This also means an argument, it should be in your notes, and contentions that create barriers between people. It's so bad that it is a barrier. I see this at work all the time. I have clients. I just have to, I may be unemployed, I don't know. This client was going on and on about a certain person who she just cannot see voting for, and she's telling me all this stuff. I just was sitting, I said, you know what? I said, you live in America. You don't have to vote.
Period. Period. You don't.
She said, what? I said, why don't you just not vote? I said, if you're gonna throw your vote away, please don't do that in this election.
Yeah.
Because it really matters who you vote for. And if you can't vote for that man, no problem. Just don't do it. And she called me. I was like, okay, this person's never coming back. I just.
There you go.
So
Well,
we're,
if you bring up a contentious.
Yeah.
Matter, then you should expect pushback.
right. Well, the problem is, okay. The problem is that the church is not doing that.
Right.
Exactly.
We're too nice.
Well,
We're like, I don't want, I just, and it's like,
Don't wanna hurt anybody's feelings or offend anybody or.
the thing is,
like, we're a radical group because we believe that our rights come from someone other than the government.
right.
Yeah.
Right,
I heard a woman say that on television,
right,
that the Christians are a radical group. They do not believe in government. They believe their rights come from somewhere other than the government. Well, my rights do come from someone other than.
Thank
And it actually says so in our Constitution,
it does.
but anyway, this is where we are.
Well, this is why this discussion is so important.
Yes.
But it's like, there are barriers that the circumstances that he's looking at are creating. The problem for the church is that we have lost our identity as to what we're supposed to be doing. And so therefore, something comes up, we don't want somebody to, I think the church confuses standing up for what is right with being nice and not offending somebody. So that offends God.
But
If we're not standing
did
up
you
for,
find it interesting though, during COVID, when the world was all in
everybody's in church.
crisis,
Mhm.
all of a sudden it was important, to go to God.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well,
And then
after
church
9/11,
closed
and after 9/11.
Any big disaster, yeah.
During COVID, and the doors were locked.
But that is diminishing. You're not seeing that as much even
No.
today.
No, people are falling away again.
Right,
They started falling away immediately as soon as the mask came off.
right, right. Okay, the law is ignored. Well, that's just wonderful, isn't it? Okay, that word in the Hebrew is pug. I think that's kind of funny. Pugs are kind of stubborn,
Law is what?
ignored.
I know, but what did you put up? What word did you put up? there?
Pug.
Pug.
Okay. Sorry, standing further.
Johnny had a dog.
Okay. This is a verb that means to be stunned, to be paralyzed, to be feeble. It indicates a response of great surprise or astonishment about something. Now, this is a really interesting word. It indicates weakness, frailty in an emotional or physical way. It has a sense of something being paralyzed in usage, not used or ignored. So the law being ignored is weakness. Right? It's weakness on the part of the person who is ignoring it. Because here's the deal, if you actually follow through the law, it creates strength. But when you ignore the law, it makes you weaker because there's no standard. There isn't anything that you can hang your hat on, right? So it's paralyzed. The law is paralyzed. It is frozen and ignored. Paralyzed. It's crazy. Justice is never upheld. That's the definition. It's an absolute answer to a question. In other words, it should be defined as you shall not or do not ever. They refuse to follow the law. That's basically what he's saying here. It is absolutely rejecting justice. I think that's crazy. So then he says, the wicked surround the righteous. Now, that term wicked is those who are evil and cannot or refuse to learn righteousness. They pursue wickedness. They're not, it's not that they're wicked because they're not saved. They are choosing not to learn righteousness. Righteous is, what's the word? The term bears primarily a moral or ethical significance. Someone or something is considered to be just or righteous because of conformity to the standard. Well, the standard is God. And then justice being perverted means to a twisted distortion of justice that results in an injustice being done. Wow. So I looked at those two words in verse 3, see and look. To see something, this is what, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is these verses right here, these words right here, see and look, I think have a very specific reason why God has put them down that way. Because to see something is to experience it. When you see, you are experiencing. And when you are looking, it's a different word. It means to watch, to regard. It has a sense of looking intently in a focused way. So this is with focus. Now, think about what he's saying. You see it, you're looking at it. What do you think he's trying to say? Why does God make Habakkuk see, or Habakkuk see and look at sin and wickedness?
I don't know, but I think he's bewildered that God's not doing anything about it.
Okay, because what is it that Habakkuk does not understand? Verse 5. He says, look, same word, among the nations, observe. To look is to watch or be focused on.
And God is speaking.
I got
God
to
is
something.
spoken. Be astonished and wonder.
So he wants them to know what it is.
Okay, so we see and look at something. God's saying, I want you to experience, understand, to watch, and be focused on this. Because that word wonder means extraordinary event that is astonishing. That's what that word means. So what does he see? I'm going to do something when? In your days. You would not believe if I told you. I think, so let's just take this and think about us today. How do we need to view what's going on today?
We need to not hide our head in the sand. You need to be aware of what's happening around you and even immediately around you, and
Are any of these questions wrong?
No.
Okay, what is the reason that God allows these questions?
Why he allows the question?
Yeah, why is he allowing this to go on and answering that?
Okay.
because he wants them to know that he has not forgotten them.
Okay, first and foremost,
He has a covenant with them.
he has a covenant. Does God want us to understand what's going on around us?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. We need to experience it, understand it, watch it, and know what it is. With the understanding that God is in charge and he will have an outcome. So there's a difference between, the beginning of this, right? Why do you make me see? Why do you cause me to look? And God's saying, because I'm going to do something. And if
Right.
you don't see what's going on, you're gonna miss what I'm doing. We want to disconnect from things because it's awful instead of looking at it with an intention. That's the thing that spoke to me the most was, what is the intent of my prayer life? What is the way that I respond? I was watching something this morning on the news. I was watching Benjamin Netanyahu being interviewed, and I just thought, at this moment, that what I need to be doing is praying for God to show and help Israel. I mean, listen, my husband and I prayed last night, Genesis 12. You know, God promised land, seed, and a nation, and to bless those who bless Israel and curse those who curse them. Our country is bringing curses. So when we think about it like this, God wants us to see and understand and look and recognize what is actually going on here. Our nation is cursing his chosen people, and he has promised to destroy those who go after his nation. And so therefore, all of these signs right here, all of this is a symptom of what's wrong with the nation, but what is our symptom? We're not looking. We're not acknowledging, we're not noticing, we're saying, oh my gosh, it's so terrible. Instead of praying with the intention, like, God, you have promised. I ask for mercy upon my nation, but I ask you to judge those people who judge your people. What would be,
But I think part of the issue is most of the world does not recognize the Jews as God's people.
but we,
They're just causing trouble.
but we do,
I know.
we do. So forget what the rest of the world's doing.
Yeah.
We need to say,
Well, the rest of
do.
the world's like, oh, can't we just get along?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just give them the land and let's just get
That's
along.
exactly.
That's right,
Yeah.
and it's a horrible idea, it's not gonna happen.
No.
So, verse 5 says, God is going to perform a miracle. Verse 5 is a wonder. God does something that is a wonder. It looks, and I think about, or a miracle. Because what do you think that Habakkuk, or you say his name? What do you think he is thinking right now? What are we thinking? I mean, we're in the same boat. How are we gonna get out of this? What's gonna happen? Rather than, I guess for me, the reason why I felt encouragement about it is that if I can see and look and recognize that God is just and he's going to take care of his people, then I should be looking for the miracle.
But-
Not looking for the destruction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, it says be astonished, wonder, like you're saying, he's gonna do something astonishing.
Right.
But is that good?
Yes,
Okay, because right after that,
yes,
the Babylonians come in and just do all this destruction.
exactly right. That's exactly right. Because what is the problem here? This is the problem that we have, and thank you, because that's exactly where we wanted to go. So he tells them this is a wonder, and then he says, I'm bringing the Chaldeans, the Babylonians.
I'm raising them to judge you.
Yes,
I'm bringing the worst of the worst
yes,
to judge you.
Yeah, I wrote, he's sending terrible judgment,
Yeah.
yes.
right beside astonished and wonder.
Okay,
Oh my
now
gosh.
think about the words that we have just looked at. The law is ignored. Look at these things that, who are the people who are doing this? Who's doing this?
Ignoring the law?
Who's doing this right here?
Well,
The judges in the Israel.
Israel. Should they expect not to be judged?
No.
No.
No?
I don't
What?
know what they expect.
Well, they think they should be. What does
Yeah.
Habakkuk say? How about that? What?
Yeah, we got it.
Well,
Okay.
he says, how long will you make us suffer, basically? And he's kind of a frustrated prophet, you know, he's very frustrated. And, he's worried about God's inaction in all of this.
Right.
Where are you, God?
Haven't we prayed that?
Aren't we your people? Yeah, I'm
This is-
sure.
This is the thing that I'm getting at. I have prayed that, like, God, would you just intervene here? And God says, excuse me, destruction, iniquity, strife, law ignored.
Well, and the thing I keep thinking is, it can't get much crazier, and it just continues.
Continues to
Snowball. It's beyond
And what do you
comprehension.
think, why do you think that's happening? I have an idea. I'm just telling you. Why do you think that's happening? We are, as a church, ignoring this, that we are part of this. Instead of being praying for God to, he needs to execute justice. Remember, I don't know if I didn't tell this to you guys, in one of my classes I was teaching, cause you know, every time I teach Revelation, I learn something new.
Me too. I looked at Carol and said, I don't think I ever knew this before.
The thing is that, one of the things that really, God really spoke to me, said 100% of sin is judged. 100%.
Okay.
So Jesus either took the judgment, right, the consequence of the sin, or you're going to hell, period, 100%. This is where we're at. So this has to be judged. It has to be. So what is the thing that the church, he's saying, I'm gonna do something wonderful here. It's gonna look bad, but do you trust me?
I read something, it's funny you said that, I read something about trust and it kind of stuck with me. It said, we in our prayer life and Habakkuk and what he's doing, he trusts in turning it over to God. I trust that God knows what he's doing. I trust there's a bigger picture. But do we trust the answer that we don't know yet?
That's exactly.
I thought that was
what he's
very
saying.
interesting.
That's
So
what
that's
faith is.
exactly what he's saying, and you said exactly the right thing there. Because it is our human nature to say, look what's going on.
I know
This
you
is
can do
horrible.
this, yeah.
I know, you know what, and
Yeah.
God says, wait, I'm bringing the answer. The answer is going to be, what are the Chaldeans going to do to Israel?
A lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, well, a whole lot of bad stuff.
He's gonna say, God's raising up the Chaldeans to judge Israel and the Assyrians. Now, why is God judging the Assyrians? Why is God judging the Assyrians? What did they
Oh,
do?
you're serious.
They destroyed
Samaria.
Jerusalem.
Oh, Samaria, that's right.
Samaria, they destroyed Samaria. They're still God's people.
Yeah.
Where
They,
idol worship came.
idol worship came to
Oh.
Judah
That's right.
from them.
Yeah.
So the Assyrians are gonna be destroyed. And who else is gonna be destroyed? The Chaldeans. Why? Because they
Because
took
what they have done
Judah,
to God's people.
what they've done to God's people. But who else is gonna be judged? God's people.
in Israel.
Why? Because these things that are happening here are what the people have done. Remember when we were looking at Israel and Judah, and God is saying to them in Micah, I think it was, when he's saying, you will have to pay a consequence of what you've done to your brother, right? Because they themselves brought all this in, the cruelty, the iniquity, the strife, the ignoring of the law, is all the stuff that he's got, and he's saying to the prophet, you are experiencing, you should be watching and focused on this. This is what the church ought to be doing. But we're so afraid, we don't know how to say to somebody, dude, you're in sin.
Yeah.
Because the first thing they're gonna say is, well, what about you?
Yeah.
Well, you are right, I am a sinner too, I've been saved too, but here's the deal. Who are we accountable to if we cannot speak to each other straightforward? I mean, not rudely, not being mean, but just saying, what's going on with you? Why are we having this problem? What's happened here? And we're not doing that in the church at all. I mean, maybe our individual churches, because we all go to the churches, but this is not the majority. This is not the obvious. This is not the typical behavior of addressing what has happened. Why is righteousness weak and ignored in the church? And why does the church think that we should be exempt from judgment? And that what Israel thought?
Oh, we're God's people.
We're God's
We're
people.
saved.
We're chosen.
We've already got a rescue.
That's right.
We're set apart. We're set apart.
We're set apart, but what we see ourselves is not set apart for a reason
Right.
to
Right.
share the gospel. We see ourselves as set apart and saved,
Right.
Yeah.
a club.
Right.
Well, sometimes it
Our
really
help,
does.
whenever they look, our
I
help.
mean, we do have that assurance, but
Right.
we're not here just to bask in the, you know, I'm saved, I'm going to heaven, what about you?
Yeah.
Right. Well, let me.
We don't do
I'm
nothing
still on
right.
the first page or second page. So we have all of this, description here. In verse 6, I'm gonna raise the Chaldeans of fierce, impetuous, they march, they seize, they're dreaded, their justice and authority originate with themselves. It goes on to this whole description. He says, in verse 11, they will sweep through like the wind and pass on, but they will be held guilty, they whose strength is their God. So he's saying, look, I'm gonna judge them. I will judge the Chaldeans. But the thing is that Israel and Judah don't look any different from them right now. They're not as vicious maybe, but they're still not doing the things that they ought to do, right? So verse 12 through 17. Now in verse 12, really through this, he actually uses several names of God. And one person said it was like 6 names. I didn't quite see it. Okay, but whatever. He used Elohim, Jehovah, the Holy One, the Rock, everlasting nature. They used all this. We will not. And so he gives his description. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? Those are 3 names right there. You, O Lord, have appointed them to judge. And you, O Rock, there's a 4th one, have established them to correct. Your eyes are too pure to approve evil, and you cannot look on wickedness with favor. Why do you look with favor on those who deal treacherously? Why are you silent when the wicked swallow up those more righteous than they? This is what I think is so funny about what he said. why are these more righteous than them? Are they really, are really the Jews more righteous than them?
No.
No,
Why
Not at
have
this
you,
point.
yes, why have you made men like fish of the sea, like creeping things without a ruler over them? The Chaldeans bring all of them up with a hook, drag them away with their net, and gather them together in their fishing net. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. This is the Chaldeans who rejoice. Therefore they offer sacrifice to their net and burn incense to their fishing net. Because through these things their catch is large and their food is plentiful. Will they therefore empty their net and continually slay nation without sparing? Why is the net full? What is the job of the Chaldeans? God has brought the Chaldeans to Israel.
Judgment.
Judgment. If they've got a full net, that's what he's saying. Well, is God judging the wicked or the righteous here?
Both.
both of it.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is that they're gathering, they offer a sacrifice to their net, for instance, with their fishing. Their catch is large and their food is plentiful. These are the Israelis or the Jews who are disobedient to God, are being judged. That's what he's talking about. And so it's
So
like,
you're saying that, I mean, they sit there, and he's setting the picture is that the net has become their idol,
the Chaldeans
the Chaldeans, yes.
are taking the Jews
Okay,
because the idol to the Chaldeans is their victory. Their
Okay.
power, they themselves are powerful, okay?
Their
So,
strength is their God.
right. So he says here, why do you favor, I thought that was really, why do you look with favor on those who deal treacherously? Why are you silent when the wicked swallow up those more righteous than they? He's saying the more righteous than they are, the Jews are more righteous than the Chaldeans.
Yeah.
But the Jews are not righteous
Yeah.
because they're in sin. So
so their catch is the Jews.
is the Jews.
Okay.
So this is the question. If God is so holy and pure, why does he allow these things with his people? Do God's actions match his character? That's what he's asking him. You say, he gave this big use of names, Jehovah, Elohim, the Holy One, the Everlasting One, all these great names of God. And at the end of that verse, he says, we will not die. Okay, well, yes, that's right, because that's what he's saying. We will not die. You, O Lord, have appointed them to judge, and you, O rock, have established them to correct. So Habakkuk is saying, I know that this is from you, God. That's what he's saying. I know it, but aren't you going to correct, right? Why do you look with favor on treacherous people? Why are you silent when the wicked swallow up the righteous? That's the question.
But didn't he know his people deserved punishment?
Yes,
But he thought this was unjust punishment,
I think,
or too harsh
that he is afraid.
and confused.
Right.
Because he knows that the purity of God does not let him allow evil.
Right.
And how could he allow the evil to judge us? Or judge the,
God is supposed to be our judge.
Yeah.
And what he's saying is God uses war, disasters, and prophets to judge those who come against his people. He requires a standard for his own children that is not required of those who do not obey him. What standard is there for a heathen? They're not listening to God anyway. But he just gave us this description here of what the standard was that's failing. And Habakkuk is like, why is this happening? So 14 through 17, Habakkuk's frustration was the Lord allowing his people to undergo this destruction. And he's saying to God, why are you giving success to ungodly men?
And then they empty their nets and do it all over again.
Listen, I'm
We
watching the
continue.
news and I pray for, Donald Trump, I do pray for him, I pray for all of these things that I see, look at that, these people that are going through all of these legal things, these, the Catholic Church is going through that, pro-life groups
Persecution.
or persecutions, I pray for them, because, this is happening. And he's saying, I have a standard for my people, and it's not required of people who don't believe in me. They're judged. They are already judged unless they go into right relation. So the question that Habakkuk is asking is, how far is God willing to let this go? How far?
Until his purpose is ultimately
Yeah.
achieved, accomplished.
So we see this, the first question in chapter 1, Habakkuk is expecting a positive answer. He's gonna come through. The second question in chapter 1 sounds like he doesn't expect a positive outcome, because he's starting to realize, like, okay, wait a second, this isn't going well, right?
Not what I expected.
Right. It's a pretty hard thing to hear. So then we get to chapter 2. Things are not looking good. Then he says in chapter 2, which amazing that it came up again. I will stand on my guard post and station myself on the rampart. What is that? What is he doing? What is he becoming?
Watchman.
A watchman on the wall. So I will keep watch to see what he will speak to me and how I may reply when I am reproved. Okay. So chapter 1 is why is this happening? Chapter 2 is wait. So in chapter 1, I'm just gonna write Ab is a watchman. So he's waiting for the Lord to answer. And how does he wait? He's waiting.
He's stationing himself. He's going to stay there and keep watch.
He is standing and waiting for the answer. Now, I'm guilty of this. I start praying about something, oh, thank you, Jesus, amen. Help me do this, blah, 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 blah. But I'm actually standing faithfully waiting for the answer. I've said the prayer, and it's convicted me. I said the prayer. Okay, so I'm married to a real prayer warrior. My husband is an amazing prayer warrior, and he will pray for things for months. And then God will deliver, and they'll just come innocent, everything I was praying for. Well, let's come to pass. I'm like, really? I mean, I'm like, already, I'm too running around doing all the crazy stuff. But it's amazing. It's amazing what happens when you stand and wait for the answer. And then he says, he wants to keep watch to see what he's gonna say. So this waiting is Spurgeon, I like him. He said, when he was talking about Habakkuk, he said, I will stand upon my watch. Not merely I will be upon my watch for a moment, but I will take my place like a sentinel who remains on guard until his time of watching is over. The effectual, fervent righteous man availeth much, but they who do not hear God's voice cannot effectually pray. For God will not hear their voice if they will not hear his. If we have been deaf to him, he will be deaf to us. Now, I understand the context. I don't think God is totally deaf, but I understand what he's saying. The intercourse and communion necessary to prevailing prayer render it absolutely essential that we should first set ourselves to hear the voice of God. And then again, it shall be said that the Lord hearkened to the voice of a man, For the man first hearkened to the voice of the Lord. So he's saying, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until you answer. But he also said, I'm gonna wait because you're gonna reprove me. You know what he's saying? To see how I may reply when I am reproved. So that word reprove is saying it's a noun which describes a rebuke, a correction, a chastening, a reproof, or an argument. The idea is to correct a wrong. So he is saying, I'm waiting to have what I have said corrected. Now, just think about that a second. You've been praying, praying and praying about something. It's what he's doing. He has looked, he has seen, he experienced something, he has a focus, he has skipped over this, right? He really has. It's like, we're God's people, we should be delivered, right? Then it doesn't happen. God says, no, I'm gonna send somebody, I'm gonna correct things. It's like, wait, that's not how I wanted to go. And then he says, I need to wait to see how I need to be corrected. Now, I don't know if I pray that.
I kept thinking, I kept thinking about Daniel's prayer in Daniel 9.
Yes, isn't that awesome?
You know, how he said, we, your people, have sinned against you.
That's right.
You know, and it's a powerful prayer. I really feel like I should print it out and
Absolutely. And-
put it in front of me.
Yes, whenever I read that, I'm just like, wow. That is an incredible prayer. And so Habakkuk is determined to wait and receive the instructions of the Lord. This is the biggest feeling that we have. We don't like to wait.
We don't want to be sure we're wrong either.
That's right. Wait
Exactly.
to receive God's word. And the other thing that's happening here is that he believes in his God. It doesn't mean we like what's going on, but it's faith that God is doing his will and not our will. See, if we're waiting, we are waiting for his will to be done. We wait for his will, not our own. Man, I tell you, this is maturity. This is a level of maturity that I would like to be at. I can't say that I'm totally there for sure, by any means. So, verse 1 of chapter 2 says, Habakkuk will wait. Verse 2 does not tell us how long he will. And verse 3 tells us that the vision is still in the future.
I guess what he should be doing, I've heard this one time about, when we pray for things. God already knows about it, and he knows that you're putting it before him, but how often do we need to repeat it to him? Maybe we just need to thank him for the work we know he's already doing.
Okay. So I think all of chapter 1, isn't he doing what you're saying? Over and over again, he's saying, what about this? What about this? What about this? We get to 2 and he says, okay, because we don't know how long between
Right.
chapter 1 and chapter 2. We don't know how long he's been doing that, right? Might have been a long time, might have been a few years for all we know. We don't know. The thing is that he says, okay, he finally got to the place, he said, okay, I'm gonna wait. Because chapter 1, there's not a lot of waiting going on there. Right? He says, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna keep watch. And I'm gonna see how I need to reply to you when you reprove me. That's what he's saying. And then he says, It hastens towards the goal, verse 3, for the vision is yet for the appointed time. It hastens towards the goal, and it will not fail. Whose goal? God's goal. Though it tarries, wait for it, for it will certainly come, it will not delay. In other words, the vision, the things that he's saying is that it's gonna come because it's God.
And he's already told him it's gonna happen during his days.
It's gonna happen during his days. Exactly.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
We don't get that.
Exactly.
You know, I just made a note and wait on God's timing, but it may not be.
Exactly. But
But he was told that, I know
He was
that.
told.
Yeah, he was
I
told.
I think that's the thing, that God does tell us. Sometimes we're just so doggone stubborn that we don't want to see it. So, God told him to record the vision, didn't he? Write it down. So this isn't just for Habakkuk. Who's this for?
For us.
For us, it's for the people that came after him, it's for the whole thing.
Yeah.
If we're gonna get into that next part,
Can you explain what it means that the one who reads it may run? What does that mean? Do you know what that means?
yes, some of the commentators thought that he would have written it down on some kind of scroll, and someone would have gone from city to city to
Sure.
share.
Oh,
That's what, they don't really know what that means, but that's the general consensus, that that's what that means, that they're gonna run, because he's standing on the wall waiting. He gets the answer, he writes it down, and they deliver it. That's what it sounds like.
I thought of it as repentance and, running the opposite way.
Right, yeah, that's a really, it's not the general consensus, but that's not a, record the vision and scribe it on tablets, that the one who reads it may run. And yeah, I might be one to run away from the consequence, for sure. That's good. But he says, it's not gonna fail, wait for it, it's going to come at the right time. That's what we need to do. Whenever we pray, and as I pray very seriously for this election, I need to wait, and whatever the outcome is, I have to trust that that's really God's plan.
You have to trust in God's answer.
That's his answer. 4 through 14 is kind of the divine perspective. Behold us for the proud one, his soul is not right within him, yep, but the righteous will live by his faith. Furthermore, wine betrays the haughty man, so that he does not stay at home. He enlarges his appetite like Sheol. He is like death, never satisfied. He also gathers to himself all nations and collects to himself all people. What a statement that is. Will not all of these take up a taunt song against him, even mockery and insinuation against him, and say, woe to him who increases what is not his for how long, and make himself rich with loans. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in just a second. I'm going to go back to that woe. But we want to see so one of the things that we looked at in this, and that this is a secondary theme that actually does matter to the understanding of it, righteous and unrighteous. So plus R minus R, these two groups, and there's this little list that I came up with is unrighteous is proud, trusts himself, not God. He is ungodly. He has unbelief. He doesn't believe. The righteous lives by faith. It also says his way is godly. He has a godly way about him. He has faith. Let me see, where's the next thing I see. The wicked is drawing back. He runs from God. He doesn't want God. This person is going to submit and trust. The ungodly is gonna say, I don't need religion, I can take care of myself, I can do without God. So that's basically what this is about. The things that the unrighteous, I have some other notes in there, but we pretty much got it. We're gonna look at the woe statements. And this is another way to look at the circumstances that he's dealing with. It is, the first woe is to him who increases what is not his. To him who gets evil gain for his house. This is one. What does it make you think about?
Well, we've read before that if they cheat in their business practices and in their wealth gain, I put pride and ambition.
Okay. It's relying on the wealth that is gained at the expense of others. You know, you get gain from at your expense. Here's the third one. Builds a city with what? Bloodshed. And not only that, he gets money by making others suffer. You know, I thought of this. I thought immediately of trafficking people and drugs across the border. I mean, it's building a city of bloodshed. It is obtaining money through the suffering of
And
others.
utter violence.
The fourth one is mixes venom and a drink in order to see nakedness. Wow, that is. So I'm just gonna say poison. I cannot spell, I tell you, sometimes. Is it P-O-I?
P-O-I-S-O-N.
Okay, poison,
There you go.
poison. Mixes poison, right? In order to see nakedness. Now, I looked that up. So, Thomas Constable, I like him, he's dead now. He says, God would judge Babylon because the Babylonians had deceived their neighbor nations with the result that they were able to take advantage of them. The Babylonians had behaved like a man who gets a woman drunk so she will lose her self-control and he could then undress her. That the Babylonians took advantage of their victims sexually is implied in the illustration as is their love for wine. So basically he's saying, you know, abusing people sexually. That's basically what it is. That's pretty terrible. So the next woe is what?
Idolatry is what I put.
Yeah, to him who calls a wooden idol to wake up.
Come to life. Like Pinocchio.
Yeah. I think that is like the crazy pants. When you're starting to do stuff like that, you have jumped off the bridge. So, in Deuteronomy, it says says the man who makes an idol is cursed. The concentration of uses of this word hesel shows the defiling, abominable effect of forgetting the Lord. Summarized in tragic statements where there's no king, everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Judges. So this is doing what's right in your own eyes. It's making whoever you want it to be your idol. Your God is gonna be whatever you make it. There's a lot we can do about that, right? How do we make things into idols today?
You set it above everything else. It becomes the most important, it takes over our godly.
Environmentalism.
Sure.
Mother Earth.
So you spend all your time and money.
Where you spend your time and money.
There's your idol.
Yep. So where is the Lord?
In his holy temple.
In his holy temple. Now, verse 14 says, the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. And where the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. The shame and infamy of Babylon is going to be covered and destroyed by the glory of God. So basically what God is saying is that in the end, I am on the throne. God will judge. Now, we started this chapter saying, I'm going to wait, I'm going to keep watch, and I'm going to station myself to be ready. How do we do that? What do we take away from this very difficult lesson? Hard lesson. What do we take away from this?
But God is always in charge.
Okay,
He's always in control. And we are not.
Yeah.
Well, we're told in the New Testament to be a watchman, to be watching for God and for what God is doing. And I feel like I'm very distracted sometimes.
Me too.
And I need to focus more on watching what God is doing and what everybody else is doing. So
how do we get in trouble with the church? How do we what? How do we get in trouble in the church regarding this kind of stuff? What are some of the problems that we bring upon ourselves?
Well, it's easy, not keeping the main thing the main thing.
Getting ahead of God,
Do what?
getting ahead of
Get
God.
ahead of God. I think we are.
Or getting, our faith so often gets crushed when we don't see an answer. Like, why is God doing this?
Because that's our mentality now, is
instant
We're in
gratification.
instant gratification, absolutely.
And so,
God, give a trigger. I need to know now.
Yeah, I need an answer right now.
and what does this tell us about what God wants from us? What kind of attitude should we really have?
Trust, we should trust God, and one of the things that we looked at was, what was it faith that we looked at,
Yes.
and the definition was not just having a belief that, things that are
It was
unseen are
steadfastness.
there. It was actually upholding God in the midst of your situation, whether you're getting your prayers answered, whether, whatever, you're still upholding God.
About my response to things that I don't understand. I think it's. So how are we gonna respond to those things that we don't understand?
Well, what we were talking about, seeing and looking, you know, experiencing them, focusing on God. Trusting Him.
Trust.
When I was reading all the definitions for upholding God, and one of the examples they gave was when they came and held Moses' arms up, so he could continue to do what God was calling him to do. They were supporting him to support God, you know, to do what God's told him to do.
Well, that's a very important thing right there.
And, I thought, you know, do we pray often enough? Do we support often enough that those that we can see are doing God's will?
Our pastors.
Yeah, our
Those that
pastors,
Need prayer.
you know,
Our
it's,
pastors' wives, prayer,
yes,
their children.
there's a reason that they're called PKs.
Yeah.
Because they're so busy in the church that, you know,
I would say, ask God
Sometimes. I don't know.
yeah.
what he wants me to pray. Now, some of us are not prayer warriors. I'm a teacher, I'm not really a prayer warrior. My sister's a prayer warrior. She's got a little closet, she's got a prayer room closet.
Really?
She can be in there for hours. She just loves to pray. My husband's a prayer warrior. I am not the prayer warrior. I pray, God, I need this done, blah, 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 blah. God's really spoken to me, saying, quit doing that. Quit doing that. That's okay sometimes to do that, but the reality is, am I really asking the Lord what he wants? Am I saying to him, God, where do you want to go today? Will you give me, the information I need to make that decision?
I felt lately that God is calling me to be more aware of his presence and to come in to his presence when I pray, not to just stand outside and throw requests at him.
Right.
And to actually come into his presence where I experience worship during that time.
Be still.
Yeah.
Right, this is exactly what happened with Habakkuk. He's like, why is this happening? What are you doing? How did you let this get to this point? And God's saying, have you looked? Do you see what the problem is here?
Yeah.
See, this has really convicted me to say, you know, I can sit here and, you know, pound my fist, stomp my feet, and say, this is wrong, that's wrong, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I'm not looking at this the right way, is what for me, the conviction that I have is to recognize that we are looking at the destruction of our nation because we have allowed
Allowed
it. We've really allowed it, and now we want God to right in and fix it.
Look what you let happen.
Yeah.
You know,
How'd you let it get?
how did you let us get to this point?
It's been happening for 50 years.
Oh, sorry, well.
Longer than that,
Yeah,
And we're not taking any responsibility for it.
exactly.
Well, that's exactly, thank you for using one word that we haven't used yet. Who's responsible for this? Is it God? Is God responsible for this? That's the thing, you know, and he's responsible to take care of us because he has a covenant with us. We have a covenant. But I kind of started thinking about that when I was teaching, the Revelation class. And I was reading something and I read it, you know, I don't know, a few times I teach Revelation, so I can't teach it again, I can't do it. But that's when I realized 100% of us are going. Because sin has to be judged 100% of the time. So when you think about it like that, it's like, well, the only reason I'm not going to hell is because Jesus paid for my sin. But now what do? I need to look and I need to see what's going on around me because that next person, I had this experience as a prison that was really kind of amazing. I've taken on teaching in a couple more dorms just as a a little devotional. And these are dorms that are not in any programs. These are just women in the dorms. Walk in there and say, hey, we're gonna do this little study on forgiveness. And so I was talking, and I have 3 little ladies in there, and we were talking about Joseph. It's like step families. You have different moms, different dads, different, kid. This is my dad. He's not your dad. This is my mom. That's not your mom, kind of thing. All this crazy. And we were talking about all of that. And one of the gals just stood up and walked off. And I looked at the others. I said, "Is she okay?" And they said, "She's having a really hard time." And I said, "Okay, do we need to pray for her?" They said, "Probably." So we started praying for her. She walked back and we were praying for her. And then she sat down. And so I said, "What's going on with you?" She grew up in the system. She was, through foster care in the system. She has children. And the man that I don't know if they're married, but the father of her children keeps saying, "I'm gonna bring the kids," and refuses to bring, so she can't see the kids and stuff. And listening to this story, dealing in foster care, being in group homes, and all the things that she went through, it's kind of stunning when you think about how do you expect a person like that to understand what forgiveness is? It's a foreign concept to them. And it's been a really good thing. I go every Monday and Tuesday at 4 o'clock into their dorms. And something like this is really helping me really think about. We're asking people to accept something about God that we ourselves don't often accept. That He has a plan that's not, because what I said to her that got her really, really rattled is, and I do 100% believe this, it's not your crime that sends you to prison. It's where God sends you, because that's where He knows He can get your attention. Because there's a lot of people who've done really bad crimes that have never gone to prison. But I said, what's worse than going to prison? How about get your legs amputated? You can't get those back. Things like that. Lose your children. Several women have lost kids. And I said, so what we have to understand about our circumstances is that God allows us in that circumstance because that's where He knows we will listen to Him. And so this is just like this situation. We as the church have allowed this to happen. And so now it's time for us to start listening, watching, wait. It's what Habakkuk's doing. He's asking why, and then he says, I need to wait. And we as a church, especially the Western church, have not learned to do that very well. And not been able to understand that this has to happen in order for people to get saved. Because people have to get desperate enough that they start to ask, why is this happening to me? How did I get here? And we need to be ready for that. We need to be ready to give an answer to somebody and say, well, this is why it's happening. And because God is just, God is righteous. He has an expectation of all mankind. He created us. It's hard for people to understand that, but that's where we're really at. And I have never done a study that I really was as resistant to teach as I in these prophets, because it's so convicting. It's so personal, and just whatever God says to you, that's what He's saying to you. But what He's saying to me is, need to be a little bit more direct. And I have been at work, and I'm gonna make somebody really mad at me, but I can't just sit back and say, it doesn't really matter whether we follow the law or not. I don't like that guy, so I don't want to be the president. Then just vote against him. Don't do the things that you're doing. It's okay. We can disagree. And in the church, we just really need to pray about how are we going to be used by the Lord where we are. How's He going to use us? And are we listening? Are we paying attention? That's what He says. Is there anything else we want to share? I'm telling you. And we're going to be off for spring break.
Yeah.
Was that the 11th?
of March?
Yeah.
March,
Another week.
I'm gonna be gone next week.
okay, what?
Pray
So
for me. We're
March
gonna be
11th.
with my son and his family. Sometimes that doesn't go so well.
Next week will be the end of part 9, and then we'll start part 10 after spring break.
Yeah.
And we'll be done by April the 29th.
So, we got- and then I have to think about fall.